E aí, pessoal? Muito boa noite, muito boa noite. Como é que vocês estão? Tudo jóia? Se vocês estiverem me ouvindo bem, já dão um ok para mim aí, por favor, no chat, para eu poder dar uma olhada aqui, ver como é que estão os comentários, ver se tem mais alguma coisa que eu preciso ajustar. E eu quero que vocês sejam muitíssimo bem-vindos hoje. Espero que vocês estejam aproveitando o conteúdo que a gente está trazendo para vocês aqui no Despertacast. E caso vocês estejam assistindo essa entrevista no futuro e prefiram assistir ela em português, tentem clicar nas configurações do vídeo que vocês vão ter aí no cantinho do YouTube e vejam se a dublagem já vai estar disponível, tá bom? Essa é uma ferramenta que ainda não está disponível para todos os canais e assim que tiver, a gente vai habilitar ela para vocês poderem escolher a linguagem de preferência de vocês, tá bom? Deixa eu ver aqui, ó. Ok, o vídeo tá ok, o áudio tá ok. Muito bem, muito obrigado. YouTube, conto com vocês aí para poder disponibilizar essa ferramenta da dublagem para a gente poder ter mais e mais convidados internacionais aqui no Despertacast, viu? E, dito isso, em nome do Despertacast, eu agradeço muito a sua audiência, quero que vocês aproveitem a, a entrevista de hoje e vamos começar a entrevista com o nosso querido convidado. Então, welcome to this episode of Desvendando e Despertar. Some of you call me Gui Costa, and I'll have the pleasure of hosting this episode. You can find me at geekcostaonline.com and see all the projects I'm currently part of. If you don't follow us yet, please go to Instagram, search for despertacast.despertar, and on YouTube, we are on Despertacast Amor Fraterno. That way, you will be able to see all of our activities, our online and in-person conferences, therapies, volunteer work, and our beloved interviews. So today, we're going to be talking to a world-famous paranormal investigator, a parapsychologist, a demonologist, and an educator. He has a PhD in parapsychology and metaphysical humanistic science. He has been actively investigating in the paranormal field for 35 years and is a residential haunting specialist. He has participated in at least 1,000 residential investigations. He can be seen on TV, radio, podcasts, magazines, and newspapers worldwide, including the Shock Doc and the travel channel called The Devil's Academy, also streaming on Discovery Plus and Max. Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you Bill Slevin. Hello, Bill.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. It'll be very nice to hear your story, see what you've been doing, and hopefully our audience has some questions that they want to ask as well. So I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Very cool. So I want to get straight into this conversation with you. Okay. So as a paranormal investigator, how do you spend most of your time? What are your typical client cases? What do you typically do?
Well, we're our main, we like going out, of course, and doing public investigations at, known haunted locations, things like that. Especially we like to do research, but our main focus is definitely helping people and doing residential investigations. And what we do is a lot of times very, very different from what you see on TV. Because as much as I love TV, it's a little more entertainment than it is, reality at times. But when we go in to help people, my team is amazing. I mean, I've handpicked my team from all over the place, all over the world actually now, and they're very well versed in many, many different things outside of the paranormal. So that when we go into a person's home, we want to give them the best, help that they could get, and we look for all the natural causes first. We want to eliminate anything that we can feel is a natural cause that is not paranormal, to get down to that. Because, we probably 70 to 80% of our cases we deal with are many other things: fear, mental illness, addiction. There's a lot of different things that seem like paranormal to people, and we want to help them get whatever help they need, whether it's paranormal or not. So we have people. I have a fully licensed psychologist on my team. We have psychic mediums. We have so many different people that we all get together for the initial Zoom call, and
Mm.
we talk to the clients and we see what's going on and we assess what we think it may be or may not be. And we may ask them to go and do some things outside of paranormal, like a medical evaluation or things like that, because we want to rule that stuff out. That stuff's easier to determine than paranormal, so we want to rule that stuff out first.
So when you get to speak to them at first, what kind of percentage do you rule out not being a paranormal activity and being a paranormal activity?
I would say 70 to 80% is not paranormal that we get. We get a lot of cases, yeah, I would say sometimes it can be both, but for the most part, it's usually about 70, 80% not,
Got it. Yeah, that's interesting. So that way your team can help guide them in different directions or even help treat them.
Right, exactly. We wanna something is bothering them.
Mhm.
So, no matter what it is, we wanna try to help them, and if we can't do it, at least we can push them in the right direction of how to do it. We also when it is paranormal, we also teach the people that a lot of times they have to change their lifestyle. They have to do things in their home. We teach them how to cleanse their own home so that they can deal with their problem. Because if we go in there and just cleanse everything and tell them, what we think it is, and it goes away, they're going to bring it right back, maybe from whatever they're doing in their house.
Got it. Yeah, it makes total sense. And out of curiosity, since it's not a very typical profession, right? It's
Right.
not like, oh, I want to be a car salesman or I want to be a dentist. I want to be like, how did you decide you had to be a paranormal investigator or in demonologist?
Well, first of all, I also have been in the technology field I'm an IT director for 33 years. So, but this side of it, I was always into paranormal horror from when I was a little kid. I always say it's very, very different than how it is now, because back then in the late 70s, early 80s, it wasn't talked about. It wasn't out in the open. You didn't have the internet. You couldn't just look up anything you wanted about paranormal. You had to be pretty quiet about it because people would think you were definitely crazy and try to lock you up if you were doing this. So I started at a young age just being very interested in wanting to learn what was real. Like, I had my own experiences, and did I really see something? Am I losing my mind? Am I a little crazy? You don't know back then because you can't research it.
Right. And do you feel a difference between when people contacted you 30 years ago versus when people contact you now, since people couldn't talk about this so openly? And what was the connection like? They were like, hey, Bill, I need to talk to you. There's something going on, but please don't tell anyone. Or is it
Right.
still like that?
Yeah, it's amazing. Back then, it was very, very different. They were very quiet. They were scared to call people because people would think they were crazy. They did not want it to get out. They didn't want people to know. Now you have a little different. I mean, people are pretty open. We still get some that are very nervous, and the first things we always get is, "You're going to think I'm crazy." And like, listen, I've been doing this 35 years. There's not much you're going to say that I'm going to make think you're crazy. But it's more of just listening to them, and they're definitely more open now. They're more willing to talk, and a lot of them are more willing to just have it out in the open. And we don't do that. We don't take our clients and blast them on social media and stuff. If you look at my social media, which I need to work on a little more this year, you won't see a lot of investigative stuff. We're going to start putting some stuff, but we don't do anything when it's residential. We don't put any client stuff up there, even if it's masked, and hidden from them. We don't want to expose anything that's a private case.
Right. Yeah. And that would be interesting as well, because I'm thinking here, if it's a paranormal case and you're working with other professionals who are in the same field, even if you put a mask on them, if you blur their face or anything like that, other paranormals would be
Yes.
able, right?
Yeah.
They would be able to know exactly who they are, where they are located, and what exactly, right?
Yeah, you can, and they may have already been contacted before by someone. It's just I don't feel unless the client had given us like I'll ask once in a while a client for permission to use something of theirs when I'm lecturing.
Right.
As an example of something. And I've had a couple people allow us to use their stuff, but unless they give us permission, and we're very, we're very secure with all of the, information and all of that. We have them sign confidentiality forms and everything that covers both of us, so that we don't want to put them out there, and we don't want them putting us out there. So we keep it pretty private, unless we're allowed to use some footage.
Yeah, makes total sense. I think if someone's looking for that kind of assistance, they would be interested in being as private as possible. So
Right.
understandable. Now, when you were saying that you liked to watch horror movies and you were a kid, and did you experience anything that was out of the ordinary that you wanted to that kind of drove you to start thinking about this more and more as life went by, or did something special happen when you were younger that made you think more and more about this?
Well, I definitely had experiences where, you see something out of the corner of your eye, you feel a little strange in places. The main thing was that I'm an empath, and for my abilities, I can feel the emotions and the energy of the living and the dead. And back then, now if you feel something like that, you could Google it. What's an empath? Oh my God, I must be an empath. I didn't know what an empath was back then. Nobody talked about that. I grew up in a Catholic family. Nobody talked about empaths and psychics, and so I would go to places, like I always say, like even a family party, and I would be sitting there, and all of a sudden I'd feel depressed, or I'd get and I was picking up on somebody else, and I didn't know that. So it was things like that that made me like try to look into things like, am I crazy? Am I depressed? Am I picking up? I didn't know, because it wasn't something talked about then. And little by little, like, horror movies and all those type of things, I just always was drawn to it. Like I always say, everybody back then had the haunted house in their neighborhood that everybody was scared of going by or whatever. And I would be the type, they'd all run past it as a little kids, and I would be trying to get in. That's just how I was, because I wanted to know, was there something in there? Are ghosts real? What is it? I had a million questions, so I tried to get answers back then.
And how did you get or start getting that validation? Because when you are an empath, it becomes a challenge to understand what energy is yours and what is from the room you're in, what is from the people that you're surrounded by.
Right.
So how did you start looking for that validation so you could understand what belonged to you and what didn't, so you could behave properly and treat it properly so you wouldn't get affected?
I still don't think I have that 100%.
Yep.
My wife will definitely say that. um, so it was weird. It was, again, because there wasn't a lot out there, and I didn't know what it was at first. It wasn't until a little later, right before I actually got out and investigated, probably in the later 80s, where I started connecting with a few people who did this and who were into this and were talking about things I didn't know about. And that's how I kind of learned a little bit, a little more of what it was. I don't know if I fully learned how to control it. I kind of somehow subconsciously shut it off. Except I don't always, I let my guard down too much, when it was certain things, but I've never fully learned how to do it. I'm lucky because, like, when we do things like MegaCon, which we have coming up next month, it's a massive convention, and our panels are 500 there. And if I if it didn't turn off from all those people in there, I don't know if I'd be able to actually do the lecture. But somehow it manages to just shut off, and I'm happy with that.
Oh, that's great. You see, I'm getting the comments here. People on chat are already writing their comments, and I can see someone is kind of telling on you here, someone special saying, Guy, he's the worst client, always need to cleanse his energy.
That's
So that's
Vivian.
coming from that's your dear wife, our dear
Yes.
Vita Nieto.
She's always cleansing me because I'm always a mess.
Yep. Yeah. So it is very interesting, because that validation, I guess that some people will understand that a little better as time goes by. But I think the beginning for most of us is when we know that it's almost like a heartbeat line, right?
Mm,
In my mind, you're feeling this way, right? And all of a sudden you get
right,
a spike, and again you get another spike, and then you start realizing that, oh, that spike doesn't belong to me. I
mm,
wasn't feeling upset. I wasn't feeling stressed. Now, all the thoughts that I'm having in my mind, they're rushing through all my brain, and I don't think they belong to me. So the next
right,
time you feel something similar, okay, I guess that's not mine either,
right,
right? So I guess it's the validation that sometimes we're trying to find outside. Most of the time it has to come from us, right? From
right,
understanding our own bodies, our own beings. And it could be very hard because we keep doubting ourselves, right?
right. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's something that I think we all get to study, and, self-awareness, I think, is one of the very first steps to
Right.
understand that. So
Well,
I know go ahead.
no, I was just going to tell you a one time. I can't go into too much detail because I don't want somebody to figure out who I'm talking about. But I've been to a lot of places where friends have had me over because they had a group, a psychic doing group readings and things like that over the years, New Jersey here. And one time I was sitting there and I can tell that the psychic definitely was not real. And I can feel they knew who I was. So I can feel I was sweating and I was extremely nervous because I was picking up their nerves. Like, and I was physically sweating, and I couldn't for a minute. I'm like, "What is this?" And then I realized what it was. I didn't say anything,
That
but
that could
I
be
realized,
stressful, huh?
yeah,
That could be very stressful, especially when they come to you and say, like, "Are you feeling what I'm feeling?" Or,
yes,
"Do you feel the room different?" Like,
yeah.
well, I was
I don't
feeling
want
it
to say
as
anything.
soon as I walked in.
Right, right,
And, yeah, sometimes they are the piece of the puzzle that is not matching properly.
right, right.
Yeah. So I know that you have different types of investigations, right? So to be very basic here, when you go into investigation, how
Yep.
do you how do you define, or how do you separate that you're dealing with a regular ghost and
Mm.
when you're dealing with a demon? And if you can classify, demons, and where do you think they come from, dimensions, or how do you separate both? How do you identify both?
Right. Well, there sometimes it's hard because demons will mimic ghosts at first. They will act just like them and they will try to mask themselves like ghosts because they don't want you to know. It's it is a very rare thing. I will say that. Like I said, I don't know, over 1,000 cases, but I've been part of 7 confirmed demonic cases. So it is very rare. But when you think it's something, and I'll get called in by other teams to help assess a case if they're not sure. So the main thing is we learn as investigators, you never provoke. You're in there treating the ghost, the spirit, the same way you would treat the client in the house. It's with respect. We're not there to do anything. But if you feel it may be something evil, demonic, you're then going to have to provoke because that's what's going to pull them out. In my opinion, because I studied Catholic demonology because I'm Catholic. So I believe they're fallen angels, and they they will only respond to religious provocation. So if you go in there and you start waving sage and Palo Santo and we use singing bowls for energy and things like that, that's not going to do anything to them. You have to take out some holy water and do an actual blessing in the house, do a binding in a room, do something that where you're calling them out and making them come out and then demanding to know who they are. But it's a very dangerous thing, and people shouldn't do that unless they have experience with it.
Yeah, that's what I hear sometimes when certain types of spiritual treatments that the people who are the therapists who are
Right.
treating us, they sometimes they say something like, I don't know if I can tell you certain things or if I can avoid certain things to happen to you, because when I do, and if I do, whatever was trying to intervene with your life is going to
Right.
become my enemy,
Right.
and they're going to come after me, and I don't need that extra responsibility because I already have a bunch of friends with me already. Type
Right.
of thing.
Right.
So do you feel that happened, that has happened to you, and how did you deal with that if it happened?
But coming back with me.
Yeah, did you ever feel like they were like, oh, Bill, you're trying to save that guy, so I'm going to come talk to you now?
Well, yeah, I've had probably more than I know, but I know of at least maybe 5 or 6 times in my life that I knew 100% that I had an attachment on me. I've been told many times by people in this chat right now too. One of my teammates, Stephanie, even her and my wife Vivian, both telling me that somebody's there, somebody's bothering me, somebody's messing with me. So yeah, sometimes they come through. I'm not the best at protecting myself like that. I do what I can, but I sometimes they do get by. It's weird because like I was at a location here in West Palm Beach called the Riddle House, many times over many years. Never had a problem there. And then one time in the same place, I got something attached to me that messed me up for like 2 weeks. And I don't I don't know why. See, those are the things that always keep me in this field. Like I don't understand why. If I've been there that many times, why? And I don't provoke, and I don't. We're always respectful, and there was many other people there. So why did something come after me that night when I've been in there a bunch of times? So yeah, everything leads to more questions.
I asked that question during one of the therapy sessions, and other people that are in the field, and like, why would something that happens regularly behave differently in a specific day? And the answer that I typically get is that day you're vibrating in a frequency, right? That
Hmm.
they on the other side can see you
Right.
clearly.
And
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 that way they attach.
yeah.
So it is, something that if you're protecting yourself and but some days you're just like you hit the door on your finger as you close the door when you arrived at the
Right.
place, and then your frequency
And,
went down.
and it's like people. If you have a person in front of you, and you say the wrong thing to them and they get triggered and worked up, a spirit is going to do the same thing. Maybe I said something that night that they didn't like, or really annoyed them. Who knows? I mean, I try to be respectful, but you never know when you could say the wrong thing. It's just like in life, you could say the wrong thing nowadays to anybody and they lose their mind. So
That's true. We never know how people are going to behave when you say something, right? But
right,
what's interesting is that since we are incarnated, we have the body to kind of hide all the things that we don't want people to see or
right,
perceive. Now, on the other entities, and they are outside,
right,
some of them can read our minds, right? Some of them can
absolutely.
feel what we feel. Did you ever get into a situation where you were talking to them, but you meant something else, and they kind of got back to you and say, "Hey, Bill, you're trying to tease me here, and I can see through you."
There's a few times where I haven't had clear direct things, but yeah, there's been some times where you're like, wait a second, something's not right. But yeah.
Yeah, I would assume they're, if they're trying to be nasty or they're trying to play with you, I guess they would, just read
Right.
your mind and say what you would want to hear to kind
Right.
of mislead you. Yeah.
And I always say, like, people say, well, aren't there, like, mean spirits and I go, well, if you know a person and they're a cranky person in life, I'm sure they're going to be a cranky person in death. So I would assume that personality, carries over. So,
Mhm.
you might get somebody that was a jokester that's going to play a lot of jokes, and or you're going to get somebody that's just mean. you know,
Mhm.
I don't think they have the power to harm you like a demon does, but they can definitely annoy you and piss you off, and you know.
You see, I want to pick your brain on this one because think about it. Do you just what you're describing? Someone
Mhm.
was incarnated alive, and then they passed, and now they are just a consciousness. They're just a spirit, okay, a
Right,
ghost. They are still the same person. They behave the same way. They are still the same. They still have the same shape and everything.
right.
Is your understanding that when someone dies and they become this ghost, can they ever get upgraded to a demon level, or that doesn't exist? Are they separate entities created differently, behave differently?
I think it's different. I do, because in my belief, a demon was never an earthborn person.
Okay.
So some will not agree with me on that. There's a lot of different people that believe in different things. I know people that don't believe in ghosts. They believe everything's a demon. You know, depending on what their faith is. So I definitely think they're different. I believe that there are two different types, like we say, ghost and spirit, where there are people that are stuck here, whether it's they don't know they're dead, they're afraid to move on, they have some kind of unfinished business, something like that. That's different from, well, we would say a spirit, which is, we believe, somebody who's already crossed over but comes back maybe for a visit.
Gotcha.
So I there's two kind of different things, but then demons are totally, I don't believe that demons were ever an earthborn person.
Gotcha. Yes, and that leads me exactly to the next question. Like, where do you think they come from? Where do you think they live most of the time? And do you think they just come here temporarily to do something for a specific activity and then they go back? Or do you feel they are always around here?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not sure 100%, but I do believe that they're not like ghosts. They don't, in my, at least in my belief and my experiences, they don't just hang around. Like, anybody can have a ghost in their house. Um, Anybody cannot have a demon in their house. It's not how it works. Demons are summoned in. They're brought in either by, messing around with some sort of divination, Ouija board, seances, the dark side of all the religions. If you're practicing, real bad black magic and things like that, or people sometimes conjure them. They think they're gonna do better from conjuring a demon or the devil, and they do things like that. And that's what I feel brings it in the house. Now, it might not be you bringing it in. It could be somebody else in the house. It could be somebody who lived there before, but I don't feel they just hang around all the time, because they're not like ghosts. They have a goal. They want to harm you or have you harm somebody else. So if you're not weak enough for them to try to actually take over, they're going to move on. I don't believe that they just hang around. Now, there is one thing that I don't know, and I can't prove this, and it was told to me by Joe Frankie, who he's a good friend of mine, and he worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren for 36 years. He was like one of their first students, and he always says the devil doesn't work on your time; he works on his time. So you play with that Ouija board when you're 15, and you bring something in. It waits maybe until you're 60 at your weakest point, and then it comes after you. Now, I'm praying that is not true because I'm a little scared of that one. But you don't know. But I don't feel that they're just hanging around all the time. There's a lot of people that believe like, you go to the Gettysburg battlefield, and oh, it's I see there's demons everywhere. I don't think a demon would be hanging around in an old battlefield. It has nothing to gain there. They're brought in and they're looking for specific people to take over.
Right. Yeah. So that's a very wise saying there, that they work on their own time, because from what I understand, time works very differently on the other side, right? It's all one thing, past,
Right.
present, and future. And if they're looking from a different dimension, they can easily pick and choose where they're landing,
Right.
when they're landing, and they
Mm-hmm.
can move something around there and just jump up again, look from above again, or just from outside, and
Right.
then jump at a different stage, different point.
Right.
So that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess some of the protections that people teach others to do, they
Mm-hmm.
include something such as, when you're creating the protection, you're not creating it only for that specific time period. You're
Right.
creating it for infinity,
Right.
backwards and forwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that way your timeline is always affected by that protection. So
Right.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
very, very good there. I like that. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. So I want to ask about some specific cases. I want you to tell us some curiosity. So if you guys that are watching us right now have questions and you haven't forwarded this podcast to your friends, this is a good time, because I want to listen to some good stories from Bill here, from some experiences that he had. So Bill, was there something that you could tell us, like a specific story that you think would be ideal for our audience today? Like something that you investigated, or something you came um, um, through and you just thought, oh, maybe this would be a good story to tell us
Right.
tonight?
Well, one of the things I like to do when I'm on podcasts, when I'm lecturing places, it's not just to entertain, it's also to educate. And I really
Yeah.
do try to do that because I want people to be into this. The more people into this, the more we're going to finally get real solid scientific proof. You know,
Mhm.
um but people need to learn the correct ways, not just off of what they see on TV and YouTube. So for instance, I like to bring this up at times because this is a really interesting thing that most people probably would, especially back then, would have never really looked at. So I had a case. This was probably I think it was in 1989 or 1991. I forget which year, but yeah, I was with some people on a team, and it's a normal thing that the family was experiencing all types of things. They were seeing things, they were hearing things, they were getting nauseous, they were getting headaches, they were getting dizzy. Just about everything you could come up with. They smelled things. I mean, it was just every possible. If you had a list, like if you go on my form when you're filling it out to do ask for an investigation, they would have checked off every box. It was everything. And one of the interesting things we look for when we go into a case like that is who's experiencing it. Because if it's just one person, it singles out possibility, not paranormal, first of all, but or something just specifically attached to them. Uh, but in this case, it was the entire family. It was the parents, the kids, everybody. So they were really nervous, and again, this was way back then, so they were really nervous to even tell anybody. And we went in and we do, even now I have a lot of equipment because I'm in IT also, but I don't use 90% of that when I go into a person's home. We use very basic things. We use audio, video, and then environmental things like EMF detectors, real EMF detectors, not K2 meters, like field meters. We use things that tell temperature, all types of stuff like that we can just tell the atmosphere in a room going on to try to see what we find out. So back then it was similar to, we went in with certain devices, and we went in 3 separate times and found absolutely nothing. Nothing was responding to us. Nothing was going off. And sometimes you have that. I've never seen it 3 times. Sometimes they'll play or they'll hide or they don't want to say anything. And then I'm thinking it can't be like mental health. I mean, it's the entire family, unless they've all just put it in each other's head so much that they're all in a massive state of fear. And I really wanted to help these people because they were very frightened. So after the 3rd time, I said, you know what? I contacted one of my friends who was an electrician, and he had some meters that I never even saw before. And I said, I want you to come in with me, and I want to check some things. And again, this was way before Google, so you didn't have a lot of this information out there. And we went down, and in the house, down in the basement, which was right under the basement where their electrical box and everything was right under their living room where they experienced most of the occurrences. So we checked the electrical system, and because the house was so old, all their cabling was completely unshielded, and it was putting off massive amounts of EMF, like dangerous amounts of EMF energy. And if you do studies and research on EMF energy, you will see that it can cause nausea, headaches, hallucinations, everything you can think of and everything that they had. So we told them that everything we were able to look at, we could not find anything. So we think you need to go and get an electrician in here and fix your wiring, which now we know is going to be a lot of money. And they wound up doing it, and everything stopped. Now, if you are somebody now who learned how to do this from watching TV shows and YouTube channels, you would never, ever think of doing that. You would think they're telling us they're seeing things that got to be a ghost, and they're going to keep cleansing, and it's not going to help them. And then when it doesn't help them and it's not working, then they're going to scream demon because the sage isn't doing anything. And then they make everybody extremely frightened, which is not good.
Yeah, I mean, makes total sense because, people are always trying to figure out the hardest first, right? It's
Right.
never really the simple things. But that brings me to a question that I forgot to ask you. So how does someone get certified or recognized to be a paranormal investigator? Where people study to do that? What's the process like? Is there a process?
That's a tricky one. It's more I say go out, buy some books, read everything you can, find a team local to you with people that have been doing this a while. Like, I'm not saying that anybody who just learned is no good. That's not what I'm saying. But if you really want to learn, find a team that has at least one person who's been doing this before the TV show started, because they'll have a different perspective on it, and you'll learn a little differently, because there's a lot of courses you could take out there.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say they're all bad. There are some that are good. Look into them and see. If the course is an hour long, it's not going to teach you anything. If they're telling you, okay, you take our course, it's $100, and in 2 hours you're going to be what they call a CPI, a certified paranormal investigator. That's not real. If you take a course that gives you a certificate of completion, that's different, because you completed the course and you have a certificate that you completed the course. Doesn't mean you're an investigator. It just means you took the course and you learned something. I say learn as much as possible, and don't only learn the paranormal, learn outside. If you're going to go to a location and you're going to bring a REM pod and you're going to bring a spirit box, understand how they work and understand what creates false positives on those. Like a REM pod, which creates an electrical magnetic field around it, and anything that goes and breaks that field, the lights and the sound goes off. But we also learned if you have a walkie-talkie and you push the talk button, it sets off the REM pod. Now,
Mm.
as an as a technician, I don't understand that 100%. I believe that it's sending out that radio wave that maybe is crossing that wave and setting it off. But it's things like that that you need to know, because if you go in and the REM pod starts going off, you need to know why. Could it be something, or is it something natural that's causing it? You need to know your surroundings. Like when we go into a person's home and we use an EMF meter, we're not in there using an EMF meter going yes or no answers and asking if they we use it to get base readings around part of every room so that we know where there are spikes in EMF, like their Wi-Fi systems over here, their air conditioner kicked on over here, so that when we do a little bit of investigating, if there's a massive spike in a room where the base readings were extremely small, then we know that might be something different.
Yeah.
So the courses, I say, read every book you can find. I'm working on some books. um, read
Yeah.
some
Tell me.
things that you can find out there. There's plenty of books. I can't even tell you. I am in the back here. I have so many books. I have so many audio books. I just like to learn about it. I've studied a little quantum physics, quantum mechanics, metaphysics. Everything you can think of is going to help you one way or another. Photography, learn photography. You will understand that you're not seeing orbs in all your pictures. So,
That's true.
people don't understand that stuff. I think if you want to be a good investigator, that's very important. Now, if you're just going to do it as a hobby and want to go to the local cemetery and the local abandoned place, that's up to you if you want to learn what's real and what's not. You're just having fun and playing around, but it's different when you're dealing with people's lives.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and was there a case that you ever chose to walk away from because it was like, "Oh, this is not something I want to deal with," or "This is too much to handle," or "This is not the time in my life that I want to deal with that." Was there a case that you can tell us about?
Uh, no, I have never walked away. I can tell you, any demonic case I've been part of, I would like to walk away at times. Um, I don't like getting those calls because if it is real, again, rare, but if it is real, it is some of the most terrifying things you can experience that will always haunt you forever, honestly. The 7 cases I was part of will haunt me forever, but I do it to help people. I would never leave. If I left because I thought it was something I really couldn't handle, I would just be leaving to get help with me, you know? But I will
Right.
tell you, every one of the 7 cases I was part of, those teams never worked in this field again. They all
Wow.
stopped. Once they saw what is actually out there and could happen, they didn't wanna be part of it. And, it's understandable, it's not for everybody. Um, we don't, like I said, we're not gonna run out of the building, but if there's something there, we're definitely gonna leave, and we're gonna tell the client to leave too, until we can figure out. But I would leave only to get more help, and that's another thing. If you're out there and you're experiencing something that you think might
Mhm,
be more than what you know how to handle. It's not a
mhm.
competition between people and teams. Contact somebody that has more experience before you get yourself, your team, and the client in trouble. It's not a competition with anybody. It's call for help. I've done it many times in my in my life.
Yeah, and when without telling us like too much detail, the things that you experienced that were like very dramatic and made those teams decide not to do it again, were those physical things that happened in the rooms that you were in? What aspects of it can you tell us?
Yeah, when you go into those cases, especially new, and you've never been part of them. Now, it doesn't mean every demonic case is going to be dangerous. It depends on the level of the demons. It depends on how easy it is to get them out. That's up to the priest, not me. But it's you a lot of times you're not ready to experience what you're about to experience. A lot of the things I've seen on those cases are things I've seen in movies and on TV that I thought were just for movies and TV. um, One case, I was knocked probably 30 feet across the room by nothing. It was like two hands hit me straight out in the chest like that and knocked me clear across the room. And some people would say that is definitely the most frightening things, and some people go, "Oh, that's not a big deal." When there's nothing there in front of you for you to defend yourself to, it's frightening. Like I always say, if you go out and you're out someplace, maybe at a bar and somebody's drunk and they get in your face, you could control the situation. You can grab a hold of them. You can, there's something to control, but I'm just standing there and all of a sudden I got hit and was knocked across the room. And then you just sit there waiting like, was that it? Are they coming after me again? What else can they do? If they're able to knock me that hard, I'm not a small guy. If they were able to knock me that hard across the room, what else can they do? So it's things like that. I have seen people levitate off the floor. I have seen things fly across the room. And other people get thrown down and knocked down and scratched and attacked. And it's frightening because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know when, you don't know to who. So it's anything in those cases are very terrifying. And, again, I don't look forward to them, but I will do it to help people.
And like when you're working with those teams, I understand that for those cases, you would need a priest sometimes. And what kind of other specialists, or have you ever worked with mediums that would be able to be there with you? And in such cases, they would say, there's something there and it's going there, and I can see it coming towards you. Have you ever worked with other specialists or people from different fields like that?
Yeah, well, I have mediums on my team that are amazing. And the teams that, when I was called into those cases, those teams had mediums there with them too. So a couple of them, not all of them. So one had one originally, and she felt that this was the one case where I was knocked across the room. They said she was there the first time, and what she felt, she would never come back in the house. So that's what made them start to question, could it be something else? Because she was so frightened she wouldn't come back in the house.
Right.
So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say when you're actually there to get rid of them, when you're doing, if you want to say the exorcism, a minor rite of exorcism they do in a house, not on a person. It's more in the house because it's very rare to get to the point of somebody being fully possessed. It's more of a infestation in the house. So they do this, the clergy will do what's called the minor rite of exorcism, which is more like a very glorified house blessing, but it chases out the demons. And when they're doing that, sometimes you can have more than one priest, which can help. You need other people around just in case, like, I'm there to help assist. Some of the team members are there because if it was to be something powerful that then goes and takes somebody over, you might need people to help hold that person down because they can become extremely violent. You wouldn't want to be there by yourself. You wouldn't want to be there with just one person. You definitely want some people there to help. Mediums can be good for those situations, but also the medium can get attacked themselves very bad, because they're open more than everybody else in there.
That made me think of something that is a clash in, I would say, in experiences. Like the Brazilians I know that study this field, the typical ones, okay, that I've
Right.
spoken to, they're like, oh yes, I want to be able to see the ghosts or whatever it is.
Right.
The Americans I've known, they would be on the other end of the spectrum saying, I want to stop seeing this thing. I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want, they were, because the way it's thought of. Now, in this specific case, and that's just my very limited experience, right? It could be
Right.
anyone. In that specific case, if you have a medium that walks out of a situation because what she's seeing is too much to handle,
Right.
if she couldn't see it, right, then like in your case or anybody else that was there that couldn't see it, the visual wouldn't be a problem that would stop you from continuing the job. So
Right.
in my mind, I think, well, some people want to see it so badly, but sometimes they are not ready to see what they're going to see.
Right.
It's
Right.
not all angels and butterflies sometimes, right?
Well, that's the thing now too. I would tell you this. I feel it has changed a little bit in the US, but in a different way. It's
Yeah.
gotten to the point now where there's so many people out there that want to be haunted and want to have a ghost because they think it's cool. And I deal with this in all the chat groups on Facebook, and it's crazy. I mean, I saw a guy post a picture of, a piece of dust that he thought was an orb, and the the comments from people, like somebody's like, get out of your house. That's a demon. I can see a face in it. This is what they tell them. And then the author of that post, the one who posted that picture, wrote back and goes, wow, that would be cool. Because again, people are a little confused by TV and YouTube, because they see all these YouTubers going in to demonic locations every night and, oh, they're having so much fun and it's so cool. I told that guy, I said, you would not be happy if that was a demon. You would not be saying that if that was a demon. It's just like when I tell people when they call us and they're like, oh my God, something's going on. I believe there's a demon in the house. I said, no, because you wouldn't say, I think there's a demon in the house. You would know. It's very,
Yeah.
very different. So yeah, but I know what you're saying. There's two different sides to it. And yeah, some people don't. And let me tell you, that's why a medium can come in very handy, because you go in there without one and you don't know enough to know the difference, and nobody's there to see it. You're
Yeah.
now playing a little dangerous game.
Yeah, I guess that the people who really want to, to say that it is a demon, it is something, they just want to have a story to tell.
Yeah.
For the most part, they want attention, right? It's just like,
Right.
oh, let me
Yes.
just say it is what I want it to be, so I can tell about this and maybe, be
Yeah.
famous or be cool
I,
in my group and have no idea of the repercussion of what
yes.
that means in their lives, right?
When I go into these groups and I try to help people, I try to be very educational. I'm very professional. Sometimes I don't want to be, but I am. Because some of them come in and they'll post their picture and I'll explain how that's a lens flare, or it's a piece of dust, or it's not a demon, or whatever. And they want to believe so much that they lose their minds. They curse me out. They tell me I'm stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. Then they'll say, why should I believe you? And then I'll tell them I have 35 years in the field and a PhD in parasitic. And then they say, I have an ego, I'm bragging. So it's you can't win with them because they're mad that you discredited their photo. They come in and say, can somebody tell me what this is? They're not looking for the truth. They're looking for validation of what they believe. And that's it.
Exactly. Some people,
Yeah.
they just want to be right. They
Yeah.
just want to
Yeah.
be, yeah.
100%.
So I don't know if the orbs that you're talking about, like in the pictures and so on, are the same orbs people are talking about in the chat. Are those the same, or they are talking about the orbs in the sky now? What
No,
are they talking about?
so there's a lot, like when you take a picture and you get one of those little transparent circles, that's in the picture. It's been taught by TV and by YouTube and internet and everything that that is a spirit. And it's not. There are real things that are called, we called them back in the day, they were called energy balls or spirit orbs. Not spirit orbs. The term orb came about with the birth of digital cameras. So they were called, energy balls, or spirit balls, things like that. Because it's believed that they're pure energy. I've seen, and they're very rare. I've seen 3 in the 35 years I've been doing this. You will see them with your eyes. They are full on 3D balls of energy. They emit their own light. They will grow. I've seen one go from like a golf ball to a softball, and they move around very intelligently. And again, they're very rare. And it pulls the energy from the room. So the odds that you're going to get it on camera are very rare, because it's going to drain the camera batteries. But also, if it goes, a lot of people have Ring cameras and security systems, and they're always, these orbs are always done with in night vision. The problem with that is if a true orb went into a room, it would have so much light coming off of it that it would be like turning a lamp on in a room, and it would trick your camera into daylight mode, and it would come out of night vision. And that what people are seeing on these cameras, and even from their regular cameras with flashes and things like that, or a light source, it's dust, pollen, dander, dead skin, hair, bugs, everything you can think of that's flying around your house. It's microscopic. You can't see it with your eyes. But on the cameras in night vision, you have the infrared light that's bouncing off of it and making it glow. And the cameras are what they call fixed focal lenses. So they can only focus at a certain distance. So when a piece of dust comes really close to the lens, it can't focus on it. So it makes it bigger than it is. It makes it very transparent and round. You'll see a spider, and the spider will be a perfect round ball sometimes. So people don't understand, and the infrared lights make it glow. So, and then a lot of people say no, but it went through the wall. Didn't go through the wall. It was a piece of dust flying in the house, and then right here it lost the glare of the infrared lights, and it disappeared because you can't see with your eyes. So it's when you tell people that, they get really pissed because now they have 400 orb photos that they're really pissed off at, and that they don't want to believe me. And I'm not doing it to discredit them. I'm trying to let them know so that they know when they see something or capture something for real, they're going to know. I would want to know. I wouldn't want to think, oh yeah, this is a ghost, and it's not,
Yeah, and the few cases you think you actually experienced the actual thing, the actual
Yeah.
balls there, like moving around, and what did you get from it? Did you think there was an actual intelligence within it, a
Well,
consciousness? What did you get out
it
of
was
it?
it was absolutely intelligent because it first of all, out of the 3, 2 of them were on demonic cases.
Yeah.
And so it can be a ghost, can be a demon, and what they're doing is they're harnessing energy. The 2 biggest were definitely on the demonic cases because they can harness more energy, we believe. Um, but when I say it's intelligent, I don't have anything around here, but it came out and it moved around the room. Like, that's the other thing. When you see them on what everybody believes are orbs, they're kind of flying in a pattern because they're flying on the airflow in the room. Now, air can come the other way and knock them back the other way, but this thing came up almost this close to your face, and came up and was just like hovering, like almost like it was looking at you. You know what I mean? And then it went to the next person, and then it moved into the center of the room, and it was going, and then so it's believed that that is a spirit or a demon trying to manifest itself. So it's pulling all the energy from the room to manifest itself. And on that one case where I was knocked across the room, which is also where I saw my first orb, that thing flew around the room for a while and then went into the corner and expanded into a giant, like 8-foot shadow, like smoky shadow, and then disappeared. So it was trying to manifest into the room,
And the way you felt it was something more good or
You,
evil?
oh, no, 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 that was bad. The third one I saw that was not on a demonic case, I didn't feel anything bad about it, but you can feel the energy. Yeah, no, on those 2, it was a really uncomfortable feeling. And the energy that they're pulling, I mean, your hair is almost standing up on your arms. You can feel it's pulling your energy along with everything in the room. And that's why I tell people, I say, you don't have to believe me. When you see one with your eyes, a real one, if you're lucky enough, you'll understand exactly what I'm saying. And you're going to go, I get it. And then
Yeah.
the first thing they ask is, okay, well, show me. And I wish I could show you, but I've been doing this 35 years. I know people who've been doing this 40 and 45 years have never, ever captured one on film. The ones that I did, the cameras were dead because it drained all the energy from the room. So I don't know what to say. And they mess with batteries. They mess with stuff. They mess with your equipment. A lot of the best stuff we experience is never captured. Always when the camera's off, always when you're about to leave, happens a lot. I think they do that on purpose.
Yeah. Did you were talking about orbs, and that made me think of portals for some reason also, Did you ever experience anything in the room that you were in, or, anything related to portals at all?
Yeah, I mean, they're I believe they're more rare too. There's some people that it's hard for us to tell because you really need a good psychic to a medium, to be able to see those portals.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would say yes. I've had a bunch of cases like that because the things that were in the house were multiple, and it was like odd. It was like one was like a kid. There was one that was like a Native American. It was they were all from, because we believe the portals coming from different dimensions. So there was all types of people in there. It wasn't just somebody who lived in that house before. I was just up in St. Augustine, and we were the people who run the old jail tour at night were nice enough to let us in on their tour, and it was a lot of fun. And they believe that there is a portal in the one room. I believe it's the right outside the sheriff's room, because they said they had a couple psychics in there that said there was a portal in there because it brings in people all the time that had nothing to do with that jail. And they get actual intelligent responses on things, and they know that they had nothing to do with the jail, but they're not 100% sure where they were coming from.
Right. Yeah. And what about the, everything that's happening nowadays with like the drones and the lights in the sky and other things that what are your thoughts on these things? Have you encountered anything like that? Have you got called to check any of those? What are your thoughts on them?
We've had calls over the years, and this is definitely where my wife's going to jump in on this one, because she's real big into the UFO and aliens, and I like it. I don't know a lot about it. I've had calls. We've actually investigated some things at times, but it's tough because even like say our recorders when we do EVP recordings, you know, yes, we do a lot of stuff that comes back intelligent that we can verify was somebody who maybe lived in that location before or somebody related to that person. But a lot of times, how do we know that it's not an alien coming through or somebody from another dimension or something like that? We nobody has that kind of 100% answer, so I believe it's out there. I totally believe in aliens, and I believe it's out there. um I don't know what to think about the drones because nowadays you have so much like people causing mass hysteria with people with TikTok and everything. You have drones, and the next thing you know, every person in New Jersey that owns a drone is now flying their drones to freak out their neighbors, and and then all of a sudden the reports are coming on that the drones are attacking houses, and nobody knows what the hell is real anymore. To be honest with you, I watched on TikTok, I think it was last year, where they have the big that big event out in the desert, the Burning Man. And
Mhm.
what happened was, all over TikTok, everybody started going crazy because they said they've quarantined the Burning Man because there was an Ebola outbreak and people were already dying. And what it was is there was so much rain that it got so muddy that the people couldn't get out with their cars and they were stuck there. But people turn it into mass hysteria. So I think there's a little bit about that with the drones. I'm not saying it can't be anything alien, and maybe some of it is, but it's hard to tell now because there's mass hysteria. Just like it's hard to tell when you see a video or you see a photo because there's so much manipulation done to them. I'm a graphic designer, so at least I have a little ability to tell some things. But people are getting really good, and they can really make a photo and a video look pretty convincing. But I definitely believe stuff's out there, and I'm not saying there's lights in the sky and stuff that I cannot explain. And I've seen some evidence, real evidence that we know wasn't manipulated, and I can't explain it.
Yeah, V is writing to us here. She's saying, she put a note here saying, my opinion about the drones here, they are only testing people to be able to tell everybody about the truth. So maybe in the near future, V, in the near future, right?
Yeah. She's
That's where we're
she's very
going.
she loves the whole UFO alien. She's researched it a little more than I have.
Yeah. It is definitely a very
It's
interesting topic because,
yeah, it's
you know,
fascinating.
it, it's not gonna, become smaller from this
No,
point with technology and everything. Halloween this year, it'll be probably the most fantastic one in all time because, what you said, that one
right.
neighbor trying to scare the other.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing those videos. People get creative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you remember, it was a few years back where I believe it started as some crazy promo. I don't it was for a horror movie. I don't remember if it was for it or if it was for something, but it was with a clown. And they were doing some crazy promos where they were having somebody dress up as a clown and they were roaming around a town and they were freaking people out. But then what happened was everybody caught on and all of a sudden every freaking city across the US was having crazy clown sightings of evil clowns hiding behind buildings and people were dressing up in clown suits and it gets it gets a little much. And then the problem with that is you're giving the real ones an advantage. Like if all these drones are flying around and there are some real alien things going on, they're going to fly right in and nobody's going to know.
Exactly. They can disguise among everything else. Nobody
Yeah.
will know them, right? Well,
Yes.
I'm very, very happy that you got to join us today. We're gearing towards the end of our talk today here, but I wanted to ask you one thing before we go.
Sure.
From your experience and everything that you've seen so far, what have you learned from the spiritual world and from your spiritual encounters that had a profound change in your life? What have you seen that from that point on you started looking at life in the spiritual realm differently?
Well, first, I want to say that I've learned that there is so much out there we do not know and probably never going to know. I think from experiences I've had, it's opened me up to believe that there is something else out there after you die, because I think that's a big one because everybody always questions that, and I still don't know 100%, but I've had some very personal experiences that I can confirm 100% that something's going on, and it's made me probably change the way I think and the way I do things and the way I believe in things, Um, I probably if I didn't get into this and research as much as I did and learn, a little bit of what's real, what's not, I would probably either be one of those people that thinks everything is gonna kill you, or I'm gonna be somebody that thinks this is all ridiculous and it's not there. You know what I mean? I think the education I had is the biggest thing of what I've learned, from my experiences and from what I've seen, you know?
Absolutely. I think the education we get every day, and even sometimes when you go into a convention where we
Yeah,
watch someone speak and like, oh, what am I really getting from this? Every time you give
yeah,
yourself the chance, you get something out of it.
yeah.
And
Like
it could
like
click in the future, could click 10 years from then.
exactly, and like I was saying before about reading books. There are a lot of books out there, and there are a lot of crap books out there, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of stuff that will give you such misinformation, but I tell people, read everything because even me, I read every book. There's books here that you probably would not believe that I actually haven't read. I read them all, but I always say there's always gonna be something in that book that you didn't know, something that's going to make you think. I have a friend who's a pure 100% skeptic, and he helps me sometimes because he'll maybe say something that I didn't think about. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So it helps you try to understand a little better.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. And you releasing a book soon, very soon, or
I'm working on it. I'm hoping to have it finished very very soon, and hopefully have it released this year. Um,
Mhm.
I have a couple behind it that I'm working on too. This one is going to be about my life, so that people can understand the things I've been through, the cases, the experiences I've had, what I've learned, that type of thing. And then I will be working on the other books explaining how to do a lot of this.
That's very
How I
cool.
feel is the right way.
Yeah, that's very cool. Any documentaries, anything that people should be taking a look at that you participated recently, or something that you think would be relevant for us to take a look and learn more about your experience?
Yeah, well, if you haven't seen it, I was on a documentary called The Devil's Academy. It's a shock doc on Discovery Plus. It's on Discovery Plus and Max and Travel Channel and all that. It's from a couple of years ago, but it's a really interesting story. It's like a mini horror movie in a way. It's a 2-hour, but it's a 2-hour documentary, and it's about a possible mass possession of a school down in Miami in 1979. It's really, really interesting. And they brought me in as an expert in demonology, so they were talking to me about that. And I'd say if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. It's not that I'm in it. It's a really good story. And also I will be at MegaCon. It's a massive convention in Orlando, February 6th to the 9th. I'll be there. My team is going to be there. I'm going to have my Florida team, some of my Georgia team, some of my Nebraska team is going to be there. Joe Frankie from the Warrens will be there. My wife will be there with her aura machine and all her candles. And we have, I have 6 panels throughout the weekend. All types of things about my life, things about my team, things with me and Joe talking about haunted dolls and, all types of things. So it's if you're around, it's February 6th to the 9th in Orlando. It's called MegaCon.
Oh, that's very cool. Thank you. If you're in Orlando, go check out Bill. Say hi to V and the whole team there. I'm sure you're going to have some fun. And 6 panels is quite a lot. That's nice. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. It's a lot. When we come out of there, I definitely don't want to talk about ghosts for a little bit.
It's 3 days, right? 6 to the 9th.
It's 4 full
4
days.
four
And like
full days.
last year, I think just on Saturday they had 190,000 people. It's massive. It's the biggest convention I've ever seen.
Wow, that is quite a lot. That's very
Yes.
cool. So I see you have your website there, billslevin.com. Any other place we can find you, Bill?
Yeah, I will be doing a lot more on social media this year, so definitely keep an eye out for it. You can find me on Facebook. Facebook, I'm going to be setting up X, Instagram, TikTok. They all go by pretty much all the same, Slevin Paranormal. You can find them on there, Facebook also. And yeah, I'm definitely, my YouTube is the same, Slevin Paranormal, and that's going to be released a little bit later this year. And I'm really excited about that. That's been in the works for a long time. So you're going to have some educational stuff on there. We're definitely going to do some interviews with some people, maybe some investigations, a lot of different things, but there will be a lot of education on it too.
Fantastic. Bill, can't thank you enough for being here today. It was very entertaining and very insightful to learn everything that you could bring to us, and everything that we talked about. I'm sure we're going to have more to talk about in the future. I would be happy to
Yes.
have you here again.
Sure.
Thank you so much for
Anytime.
being here. Thank you,
Thank you for having
everybody.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody that watched us today. If you enjoyed it, forward this to anybody that you find that would be interesting to them as well. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for everyone that participated in the chat. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Bill.
Bye.